it's me. I'm back. We're talking about Wolverine and Deadpool. Deadpool and Wolverine. Friends forever, 100 years. 100 years, Wolverine and Deadpool. I've seen the movie. We're all caught up now. If you want to see me talk about all the other X-Men movies, click the link here or wherever and go do that. The short version is that I thought it was pretty good. I really had a good time. It's not perfect. I have some problems with it, but it's mostly nitpicking if I'm being honest. Overall, I really enjoyed it, and I think I recommend it. It's a good time. I think they did a good job. But let's get into things a little deeper. We're going full spoilers with this video, so if you haven't seen Deadpool Wolverine, check it out. Or don't, and watch this anyways, but I'm going to spoil it, so there's your warning. Yeah, so I was skeptical going into this one, but overall, I was just kind of so excited to get back into X-Men and Wolverine, and to see Hugh Jackman again, that I kind of came completely around and was like just fully hyped to see this movie, and I thought it delivered. I think they kind of nailed it, and they kind of pulled it off. This is another one of those that like they really could have fucked up in many different ways. Kind of similar to Spider-Man No Way Home, for example, where we're bringing back old actors, which seems like it could be tired and that we are out of ideas, and that's true to a certain extent, but the movie itself gets to be self-aware about that, and it's overall just a really fun ride. The action's really solid all around. We get some cool Wolverine versus Deadpool fights that are creative, good cinematography, great choreography, and it's just like a fun ride all the way through. I think this movie kind of succeeds at doing what I think people wanted or were expecting Doctor Strange 2 to do, where people were expecting like cameos and references to previous movies from other universes and things like that. And Doctor Strange kind of did that, but in a way that like none of it ended up mattering at all. But here, they do kind of the same idea, except that it actually is like very important to the story, and it's kind of what the story is all about in general. At first I was a little bit disappointed with how they brought Hugh Jackman Wolverine into the story. I love the initial setup of how the idea that when Logan dies at the end of Logan, it leads to an unraveling of that universe because the main actor and the main character of that series is now gone, and so audiences kind of slowly lose interest, and so the universe slowly dies over time. So Deadpool's just like, well, I could fix this. I'll just grab another Hugh Jackman Wolverine from another universe and put him in, and then problem solved. We could keep doing X-Men movies. So the Logan we're following in this movie is not our Logan. He has a different backstory. He seems to have like some similar experiences to the Wolverine we know, but he's got like a totally different arc, and he's from a completely different timeline. So at first I was like a little bit not into that idea, because it's like, oh, so it's not our Logan, it's not our Hugh Jackman Wolverine that we've been following for 50 movies. It's a completely different guy that we don't really know. But the more the movie went on, the more I just kind of got into the story it was doing, and got into just having Hugh Jackman be a version of Wolverine. He's genuinely great in this role, and I don't really get tired of seeing him be Wolverine. So it's okay that it's not the one that we're familiar with. And even that is like an arbitrary thing anyways, because like there's multiple timelines in the Wolverine X-Men franchise anyways. It's confusing how they're even connected. Logan feels like it's maybe a weird out of canon epilogue to those movies than like an actual entry in them anyways. So it's like, does it even matter? Does it even matter that it's not the main Wolverine that we know? I don't really think so, and neither does this movie. Oh boy, there is a lot of bugs here. I'm regretting filming in the woods. This was a bad idea. We get a lot of fun, like really quick multiverse fan servicey moments. We get to see like various different versions of Wolverine from across the multiverse. We get an Age of Apocalypse reference. We get Henry Cavill Wolverine, which was really fun and weird, and I liked. Then we end up landing on the Wolverine for this movie, who is finally in the actual yellow and blue costume for the first time ever. This was literally enough to get me to be excited for this movie, and yeah, it was really fun to see him embrace being in a goofy costume. It was great. I also like that they tied it into his character, so it wasn't just like, hey, he's in the costume this time, isn't that fun? No, there was like a specific story and character reason for him to be in a more colorful costume than we've seen him before. I also really liked how they pulled a Marvel Studios and lied in most of the marketing about him having the full cowl mask thing. Because in all of the marketing, they're just like, it's Hugh Jackman, he's back, he's got the regular costume, it's almost identical to the one from the comics, except there's no cowl. So that made me speculate, are they going to bring back Wolverine one last time and pretend that they're doing the full costume, but not actually do the full costume? And no, they did it. They just didn't put it in the trailer, because they were saving it as a big moment for the final movie, which is fucking way better. Like, I got like, and this was a really fun theater going experience too. We saw it. I saw it with my brother opening weekend, and it was packed. The theater was packed, and it was just genuinely fun to get to see all the big like hype cameos and exciting moments, like Wolverine putting on the cowl right before the best action scene in the movie, and just getting like so hyped. It was just genuinely a really fun experience. Basically, I'm glad that this popcorn bucket didn't lie to me. And I'm glad that they ended up fully committing. And then he wears the cowl for like the entire third act too. It's not just like one action scene and then he takes it off and it's back to like regular Hugh Jackman, which would have been enough to satisfy me. But no, he wears it like the rest of the third act. There's like dramatic dialogue scenes where he still wears it. At one point his costume gets destroyed, so he's shirtless, except he still has the mask on, and it looks fucking awesome. It's great. And I was like preparing myself to be a little bit disappointed, but like trying to convince myself that it would still be a good time. I was like saying to myself, maybe Wolverine's mask is just one of those that doesn't really work in live action. It just doesn't translate well. Like, it looks awesome in comic book form and in animation, but like, how does that thing really work in 3D? Would it actually look good in live action? I know I want to see it, but would it actually work? And to be honest, it does look a little goofy. I'm glad that they went for it, and I think the way they like set it up and built up to it was awesome. But like, it does look a little goofy. I'm willing to give them some grace for this, because this is literally the first time they've ever attempted making Wolverine's mask in live action. So for a first attempt, it looks great. It's awesome. I love that they give him the Deadpool eyes too, so he could still be expressive. It works. I like it. But it is like a little weird looking. I think it's also strange because I'm so used to seeing him without the mask that to finally see it is like, oh, whoa, this is new. This is different. This is going to be me talking about the mask and nothing else for the rest of the video. Oh yeah, also that one take side-scrolling action sequence was fucking incredible. Very like Old Boy inspired. It looked awesome. They did like a cut in the middle for a joke, which I was a little bit disappointed by. But like, they still held on it for a good 30 seconds or so, and then a joke, and then another good like 30 seconds at least. So that's two really long action scenes, one takes back to back, and they were both really cool. So that still works. Maybe they just literally needed to cut to make it flow better, or to like, maybe the choreography, they just needed a break to set things up for the part where they go through the bus. I don't know, but I feel like it was maybe that there was one long take of it, and then the studio got like nervous of that much violence with no jokes in a Deadpool movie, so they're like, throw a joke in the middle. I don't know. Either way, there's going to be a scene that I look up and rewatch very frequently. Good job, movie. Cool action. Let's talk about some of the like cameos in this movie. That was like the thing that people were speculating on. I remember hearing about some of them. I heard about Elektra, Jennifer Garner, that she was back, which I'm like, that's a weird pull, but okay. We saw Pyro in one of the trailers. I think they showed Azazel in one of the trailers, so we saw that some of the other X-Men, forgotten X-Men characters were coming back. I didn't pay too close attention to all of the news, so it's possible that other characters were leaked or announced early on and I just completely missed them, which I was glad for, because then it was more of a surprise to me when some of them showed up. Elektra I mentioned, which was a cool pull. Blade I got really hyped for. I did not expect to see Blade, and he kind of stole the movie for me, to be honest. Wesley Snipes is like so funny in that role, and you could tell he's just having a blast. He got a lot of moments to be cool, too. That was the thing. So we got like a very similar sequence to in the Multiverse of Madness when Doctor Strange meets the like alternate Earth. I think they're called the Illuminati, but they're basically just this Earth's version of the Avengers. So many bugs. They're all like obscure references. One character from another movie universe, except he's different and not the one you know. And then John Krasinski, Mr. Fantastic, which is a reference to like the popular fan casting choice, but not a reference to like anything that like you would be able to pick up on from watching the movies or reading the comics. It was like a very weird choice, and then he's just there and then dies, and then that's it. It's like, what are we doing here? Where this movie does kind of the same thing, but more gooder. First of all, early we get Chris Evans' Johnny Storm, which was awesome. I completely guessed immediately that it was going to be Johnny and not Captain America, but it was still really fun to have the moment of like, you think he's going to say Avengers Assemble or something to that effect, and then he says Flame On and reveals that he's Johnny Storm. It's still a fun moment. I think they were playing with that idea in Deadpool 2 and then just weren't able to get Chris Evans for whatever reason. But I loved seeing it here. I thought it was great. It was fun to like sneak in a Chris Evans cameo, basically. Just be like, we're using Chris Evans again, but it's technically not like undoing his retirement as Captain America, because he's not playing Captain America. He's playing Human Torch. And isn't that fun? And yes, it is. So then later in the movie we meet like the Marvel Knights or the Midnight Suns or whatever you want to call them. I don't know. Did they have a team name? Not really. The forgotten Marvel Fox characters. So we got Elektra, we got Blade, X-23, which was a cool addition, of course. I really wanted more out of her as well. I thought it was great to bring her back. I love the actress. I think she was really awesome in Logan, but we never like really got to see her evolve as a character, and this was like the opportunity to do that, and she still didn't really have a whole lot to do, which I was a little bit disappointed by, partly because she's meeting a Logan that she has no connection with, so there's like not really much to work with there. But they did establish that she survived the Great Purge or whatever and was there at the end of the movie. So I thought that was cool. I hope we get to see her again. What I want them to do with X-23 is pull a Miles Morales in the main comics continuity. Basically what they did was the Ultimate Comics universe was like really popular for a long time, but eventually it sort of fizzled out, and most of the characters like people weren't that interested in, except for Miles Morales. So, and eventually they had a big multiverse event, and that universe got destroyed, and everyone from that universe is gone, except for Miles Morales, who got brought over to the main universe. And the continuity's gotten like complicated and convoluted since then, but I like the idea that he's the only one remaining from this other universe, so like you still have an element of that character remaining, but he's still his own thing and he still gets to like exist in the main Marvel universe. And so that's kind of what I want them to do with X-23. I kind of want her to carry over from the Fox universe to the MCU proper, and then you can build a new version of the X-Men from that. So you still have like something connecting it to the old continuity, but she's a new enough character that you can still like bring on new audiences without asking them to watch 40 X-Men movies that take place in another reality that doesn't matter anymore. That's what I think they should do. Basically, I just wanted to see more of X-23. I think it was awesome that she was here, but I wanted more. Give me more. And then Channing Tatum as Gambit, which was so funny, and it was kind of great. Like, the reason this works and the Reed Richards thing doesn't is, okay, first of all, the backstory. Channing Tatum was officially cast as Gambit a long, long time ago, and I think they were even announced like he was going to get his own solo movie, and it always felt a little bit fishy to me, and it just never ended up happening. But it was an official announcement, and it was at one point there were plans to have Channing Tatum play Gambit. And so he shows up here, which is like a crazy pull to a movie that was announced but never released. And it was kind of great because it was a joke. Deadpool was like, who is this guy? I've never heard of him. He seems really silly. His costume looks dumb, and his accent is goofy as hell. And they basically just made fun of him the whole time. I like Gambit in the comics. I think he's a great character. I'm not saying that we shouldn't at some point get a like serious, cool version of Gambit, but I think for this movie specifically, having Channing Tatum show up and it's a joke, it makes so much more sense than having like Reed Richards show up and it's John Krasinski, a reference to nothing, and he's there for like a second and then it doesn't matter and he dies. Here, it's like a joke, so it works, it's silly, but it's also a fun reference to a thing that never ended up happening. And that's sort of part of his character as well, is like these other characters like Elektra and Blade and X-23 were characters that were either like forgotten or like never really got their full shot that they deserved. And Gambit falls into more of that latter category of a character that was planned to show up eventually, but never ended up actually doing anything or even appearing. And they made like that part of his like character. Like he kept being like, man, I sure wish I had my chance to be cool. And then like he did. There's this big fight scene later, and all of these characters get to have like a cool moment, including Gambit. And it was like fun. I also love that they gave him a very comic accurate costume, and once again, it looks goofy as fuck. It's one of those costumes that works in the comics, but like I just think doesn't really translate well to live action. But they're like, whatever, we're going for kind of a goofier tone with Gambit anyways. Let's lean full into it and give the fans the like fan casting thing that was officially announced but never ended up happening, and like follow through with that. Cool idea. It totally worked. I loved it. Another great moment with Blade was they had like a gun that was from the Punisher who had died at some point before the events of the movie. And Deadpool's like, which Punisher? There's been like 5. And then Wesley Snipes goes, but there's only ever been one Blade, and there's only ever going to be one Blade. And that was so fucking awesome. I thought it was great. I thought he was great. I'd be totally down for him to come back and just do more Blade. I like him as Blade. It's fun. It's campy. It's wonderful. I would also be down to see Mahershala Ali as Blade, who they've cast and they've announced his movie, but there's been something funky going on with that one. I think it's been delayed several different times. It's had multiple directors attached and then leave the project. I don't know what's going on with that one, but it seems there's a stink on it. Pivoting to Wesley Snipes wouldn't be the worst idea, but I think Mahershala, like, he's excellent, and I would be down to see him as Blade too. So we'll see, I guess. I don't know. I like Blade. I think he's fun. Put him in the movies. Oh yeah, there was a thing that I really liked about this movie that I thought was cool, and I wish that more MCU movies would lean into this idea. So there's a lot of stuff in here that's like directly taken from Loki. Like they take a lot of the world building of the TVA, which I forget what stands for, the Time Cop organization. And there's a lot of lore straight from Loki that they like are just like, yeah, remember from in Loki, and that's all that they give you. There's even a moment where Deadpool's like, oh, that plot point from Loki season 1 episode 5 or whatever. And I think that's great. I think it's the kind of thing that they should just lean into more often, because comic books do this all the time, where like the characters in universe will like be referencing something that happened like a few weeks ago, and then there'll be like a little asterisk, and then at the bottom of the panel, or sometimes at the bottom of the page, there'll be a little editor's note that's like, oh, that happened in issue 142 or whatever. So then you as an audience member can go and like look up that issue if you want to know more context. But also it's usually done in a way that like you can figure out the gist of what's happening in the moment just through context clues. And that's kind of the case for the majority of the MCU stuff. But the more and more they like reference other characters and other movies and shows, and the more and more stuff they have, the harder and harder it gets to like get into it. So I think that's like a really smart way of doing it, of just being like, yeah, here's the specific episode that explains the thing we're dealing with in this movie, and you can go watch it if you want to, but also you'll probably be fine just like being along for the ride and figuring out the gist of what's happening. They did a similar thing in Across the Spider-Verse, which I thought was really cool. There's a moment where someone mentions that they're using hammer space, and then there's an asterisk to what that means, and then there's a pop-up bubble that appears in the movie that says like hammer space is a pocket dimension that you can use to store items the same way of like a bag of holding or Hermione's magic bag or whatever, which is how Spider-Ham is able to pull weapons out of thin air like a cartoon character. And it's just there for like a split second in the movie, so like either you read it really fast or you completely miss it and then like go back and rewatch the movie later and pause, or look up a video that like explains what that said. But the creators in the movie are like, we know that our audiences are gonna do that, so we're just gonna throw this in, and then someone will like eventually, if they're really curious to know what that said, they can go back and watch the movie again, or look up an online video that says that's got like top 1 million Easter eggs you missed or whatever. And I actually think that's really cool that movies are even trying to attempt this type of storytelling that you can get away with in a comic, because it's you're reading it, so the story progresses at the pace of the reader. The reader dictates the pace of the story, so if they want to pause their reading, read the little asterisks, and then go look up that comic book issue and read that for full context before continuing the story, they could do that, and it wouldn't ruin the experience for like someone else, because you're deciding how fast you read. Movies obviously have a different angle with that. It's much trickier to pull this kind of thing off because it's progresses linearly through time, so everyone's experiencing the story at the same pace, so it's harder to throw in like references and stuff that'll like give the reader more context if they want it. But I kind of appreciate Deadpool just being like, yeah, go watch season 1 episode 5 of Loki if you want more context for what's happening, because it actually is kind of helpful to go back and rewatch that if you've forgotten what happened, or like if you hadn't seen it before, maybe watch it for the first time if you are interested in learning more of the context of what's going on in the time agency, whatever. I genuinely think that this is the type of thing that the MCU should use more often. At the very least, they should be having a previously on, like how like many TV shows do, that recap the events of either the previous episode or like plot points from earlier episodes that are become relevant again in this one. Sometimes that can lead to like spoilery type stuff, like you can guess what might happen because of what they're reminding you happened in a previous episode. But there's so many fucking movies and shows in the MCU now that like it's the kind of thing I think they kind of need to do. And at a certain level, there are a lot of stuff in these movies that are designed for like top 10 things you missed videos. So if you're gonna like have that stuff in there, it would be genuinely helpful to just tell the audience like these are the movies and episodes of stuff that are being referenced currently. I think they should just be doing that. And maybe it's a little fourth wall breaky, which is obviously fine for a Deadpool movie, but maybe wouldn't work as well in a Spider-Man movie, for example. But like, I don't know, what else are you supposed to do? If you want to keep on the trajectory of making 1 billion movies forever, and they're all connected, then you got to give the audience a little bit of help to catch up, or at least be reminded of stuff that they maybe watched, but like 15 years ago and they forgot about it. I think those are all the main things that I wanted to gush about. Mostly I really enjoyed this movie and I had a good time. I thought it was fun. I like Wolverine. I don't really get tired of seeing him kill people, so we got to see that here, and so it was a good one. For good job, movie. I liked it. This movie is in at an interesting place as well. I think Marvel was really hoping this is the one that like redeems them, not redeems them exactly, but like gets people excited to see Marvel movies again, even if it is literally just for Hugh Jackman. But at the same time, it's kind of like, in a way, it's kind of a Hail Mary as well, because like there's only so many more times you can pull back actors from previous movies. Like we did it with Spider-Man No Way Home, And we're doing it now with Hugh Jackman, and there really isn't much else you can pull from that would get people kind of excited to see stuff again. Like, you've kind of touched on everything now, especially since this one brought back stuff from Fantastic Four, Blade, Elektra, various references and Easter eggs to other Marvel movies and things. So, like, you kind of have to, at some point, make something new. And this was sort of a one last ride victory lap of the X-Men movies. We even get a little high school graduation video of, like, behind the scenes and stuff of all the Fox X-Men and Fantastic Four and various other Marvel movies, which was kind of cute and fun to see. But it's like, it's done now. It's over. Like, you can bring back Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm sure they probably will show up again. Like, I know Deadpool will show up again. I really want X-23 to show up again, because she's the character that I think has a lot more potential to grow and be interesting. And I want to see the X-Men again in the MCU. Like, I think it's still strange that they haven't really done much with the X-Men yet. But I hope that Marvel learns from this movie, not that, like, oh, we should bring back old actors. Hey, it's that actor you like. Please, come see the movie. We don't know what we're doing. I hope they don't do that and treat this as more of a jumping on point as well as a jumping off point. And, like, don't lean so hard into the multiverse, although this movie weirdly did it in a way that kind of worked, and also in a way that, like, it didn't really matter for the story they were telling. Like, it could have been whatever. That just happened to be the thing they were fighting. Oh, I forgot to mention, I thought Cassandra Nova was really cool. I liked her. When she put her hands inside people to, like, read their minds, that was fucking creepy as fuck. I really didn't like that because it disturbed me. In a movie with, like, tons of blood and gore and violence, that was the only thing that, like, freaked me out and was like, ugh, I don't like that. The effects were also just, like, amazing and worked, and I don't know how they did them, but they looked incredible. Disgusting. Truly disgusting. 10 out of 10. But yeah, I think this movie was a success. I think they pulled it off. I'm glad that they didn't, like, screw this up in some horrible way. I think it was clever how it seemed like they were kind of undoing the weight of the death of Logan at the end of Logan. But they kind of made it work because, one, they were very tongue-in-cheek about it, where the movie opens with Deadpool literally digging up Wolverine's corpse. We're dragging him out of the grave back into the movies, which is pretty funny. And then it also is like, no, the death of Logan is actually so important to the Fox X-Men universe that it caused that timeline to completely decay and collapse. So it is actually an incredibly meaningful and important moment in this movie as well. But yeah, I sure hope that Marvel doesn't keep just like, hey, how about this old actor? Does that make you want to see the movie? We don't know what we're doing. I sure hope they don't do that.
You could do that, but why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
Anyways, there's probably some other stuff that I'm forgetting, but overall, I had a really good time with this one. Also, they played Avril Lavigne in it, so it's a 10 out of 10. Perfect movie. What did you think? Did you see it? Did you like it? Did you like the part when he put on the mask and then killed a bunch of Deadpools? I thought it was pretty cool. Pretty good. Thank you for watching. Go watch my long video about X-Men where I talked about all the other movies for way too long. Thanks for watching. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by. I make videos about things. Sometimes I talk about early 2000s cartoons. Sometimes I talk about current things that I'm interested in, like Wolverine. And sometimes I talk about whatever else I feel like. So that's this channel. It doesn't have much of a consistency, but I hope you stick around anyways. Thanks for watching. That's Deadpool and Wolverine, the last X-Men movie of all time. They never made any more after this one. The end. So this is what it feels like.